Hello and welcome to TheGunBlog.ca. My name is Nicholas Johnson and my guest today is Tony Bernardo. He is the Executive Director of the CSSA, that's the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. It's one of Canada's biggest and most influential associations of gun owners. Hi, Tony. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Nicholas. Nice to be here.
And we're going to start with the legal challenge that you just filed against the Trudeau Liberal government of Canada. And we're going to be then getting into some broader questions of gun politics, gun policy, gun advocacy, and culture, and get into that. But first, about this legal challenge that you filed this month, why this legal challenge?
Because there are some serious flaws in C-21. The CSSA has done many legal challenges in the past, some fruitful, some not. With the current round of legal challenges that are out there, we didn't feel that our input on those would be able to make a strategic difference. And we looked around for another way that we can win something and still affect it. And it ended up being more fortuitous than we had believed it would have been. What we had seen was in C-21, there are a number of significant problems. We're going to describe these problems as black letter law. Black letter law is stuff that's written down. It says you must do this before you can do this. And in C-21, there's a number of places where it wasn't done. This could have the effect of rendering the bill completely null and void. These things are fairly prominent. The other thing that it didn't do, and I think we need to touch on this, because people look at things like the long gun registry and go, well, gee, public sentiment killed the long gun registry. Yeah, and that's true. But it was public sentiment about the money being spent. Quite frankly, Canadians have absolutely no care whatsoever whether or not gun owners are being done by fairly. What they care about is how much money it's costing to do us in. And the handguns, 1.1 million handguns in Canada, were being taken from families with no compensation offered. We have to come to the understanding, of course, that in a democracy, a government can take people's property. But what they can't do is take it without being paid for. This is a very important argument, because the amount of money that they're going to spend paying for it has a relativity to the cause and effect of the legislation. So we have to have legislation that is going to be worth the price you have to pay. With 1.1 million handguns out there, that is one great big price. That makes this bill very hard to sell, particularly when the handguns that are being seized are not the ones being used in crimes. So people are going to spend a fortune paying out these claims and get no benefit in public safety. So it's an important thing. There's been a misconception that what we're trying to do is get the government to pay compensation. And that is not really it. What we're trying to do is get the government to shut down C-21 because the thing is so damn expensive that it will lose as public sentiment. So that's why this is important for people to understand that point. So between all these points, and there's probably 12 of them in the bill, we feel that there's some excellent chances here to bring the bill down. People can read the bill. They can go to our website. The bill's 43 pages long. It's fairly easy reading as legal documents go. You can go there and you can read for yourself why we think the sections of the bill, most of the bill, is null and void, and that we have a significant chance of being able to beat this thing.
Let me thanks for walking us through that. I want to connect some dots here for myself, and I don't want to give too much background because I assume my viewers have some familiarity, but we're talking about a few things, and just for myself then. The legal challenge, Bill C-21 is the bill that's now in front of Parliament, in front of the House of Commons for consideration.
Right.
The part that we knew about before this week, we're recording this on November 24th. So the part we knew about that was public until this week was the mass handgun confiscations.
Right.
And there's another part that's just got introduced for shotguns and rifles, and so that's a brand new. You're talking about the handgun component, and I want to make sure also you're not the lawsuit is focused on the bill or on the order in council that is already in place that precedes the bill.
It's focused on the bill.
Okay,
So when the order in council guns were added into it, that was unexpected, I think, by everybody.
I mean the handguns, the order in council on the handguns from October 21st.
No, we're focusing on the bill.
On the bill itself. Okay.
Yes, on the bill, not the order in council. But the May 2020 OIC guns that were proposed to be added in, they have not been added in yet. And so that's their reading that they would get added in. So we're still a few weeks ahead of ourselves.
Well, they just got the list that was distributed today by SECU, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. That's a mouthful. The list that was distributed by SECU, that's available on the TheGunBlog.ca website, and it's circulating from other people, I'm having I thought it included the May 2020 OICs in those. Yeah,
it does.
It does.
Yes,
okay. Yeah.
That list is new.
That list is new as of this week. Yeah.
Right. But prior to this week, C-21 did not include the May 2020 order in council.
Right.
So what the Liberals have done is they've done a fast one on this. Right. And you see right now the legal challenges that are out there are focused on some on Bill C-71, but some on the order in council guns too.
The long guns.
Yeah, the long guns. Right.
And those are the six. I'm just going to connect the dots just to, again, for myself. Those six legal challenges are the six that are in federal court against the confiscations that were ordered in May 2020.
That's
and
correct.
You're beginning a new legal challenge in federal court focused on the handgun confiscations.
That's correct.
And
specifically not focused just on the handgun confiscation, but on Bill C-21.
On Bill C-21, I see, because, okay, I'm getting it now. So it's not. So you're focused on the Charter of Rights, the Firearms Act, and you're saying it's basically like a federal overreach into provincial jurisdiction because property is under provincial jurisdiction. And the thing you said a moment ago, that you can the government can under certain circumstances order confiscation, but this business of confiscating without compensating, that's a violation of everything.
That's right. That's what we feel, and that's what there's a previous Supreme Court decision that says. Now, when we're talking about provincial jurisdiction here, the Charter of Confederation gives property rights to provinces, which is why no matter how loud Canadians scream, the feds never give us property rights. That's one of the reasons, of course. The other ones is they don't want us to have them, but these property rights take many forms in provincial jurisdiction, and one of them is in the Successions Act. Now, please remember, I'm not a lawyer, so the opinions that I have are the opinions of a layman. I have to say this because anything I say to you could eventually be used by another lawyer on the other side to beat me over the head with, okay? So
I'm also not a lawyer. This is also just my opinion.
Right, exactly. We're just our opinions, and we're sharing our opinions. And in this case, we are represented by our councils. So I have to make that very clear. But in the Successions Act, there's a number of things, and it basically says when I pass, my property goes to my successors. This is not an arbitrary thing. This is absolutely a mandatory thing. Now, what the feds are trying to do by doing it this way is they're trying to make our property valueless now. They make our property valueless now. Therefore, when you pass and your property goes to your successors, it's of no value, and therefore they don't have to pay compensation. That is really a mug's game in every way, because it is the actions of the federal government that are causing the property to become valueless in the first place. So they're basically doing a self-fulfilling prophecy here, right? So we think that this is a very important thing for the reasons I discussed earlier. Public opinion on legislation like that is very often attached to a price tag. And this should be attached to a price tag because whether people know it or not, it already is. Like if we're talking about a $4 billion price tag, we are talking about the devaluation to zero of $4 billion worth of Canadians' property.
It's and the thing I notice also, I want the audience to notice this too, the people watching us, that you haven't mentioned the word firearm, shotgun, gun, rifle, what this is not specific to gun owners. Like this,
Right.
what you're talking about, if it would happen to anybody, there would be uproar. This would be what you're describing is really sneaky and devious and malicious and unethical, and it's I find it an incredible rights abuse. And what astonishes me is that we're taking it so quietly.
Well, right, and I could probably add a few more words to
Yeah,
the list.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Canadians, not gun owners, Canadians should be absolutely outraged that the government can reach out its iron fist and smash billions of dollars worth of property that belong to Canadians and not ever be held accountable. Well, we don't think that's right. The Supreme Court didn't think that's right. And we're going to make damn sure that we do our best to make the government now know it's not right. So,
and that's also the amount is staggering of personal and family wealth, and I'm directly affected by this because I'm targeted by the confiscations. So that means stuff that my dad was planning to give me or perhaps to my brother, that's a no-go. Stuff that I would like to give to my son is at the moment a no-go, and that's thousands. Unfortunately, I have a small collection, but it's thousands and thousands of dollars of personal family wealth that just immediately went to zero, because it's not only the guns, right? It's also the related equipment that becomes valueless without the gun. Who wants a Glock 17 holster if you can't have a Glock 17? Who wants an AR-15 magazine or scope or sight if you can't have an AR-15? Like all the related gear also becomes worthless.
Right, you're dealing with generational wealth too.
Absolutely.
The money is passed down from generation to generation. The government has done an absolutely magnificent job of putting property out of the reach of ordinary Canadians. If it isn't for generational wealth being handed down, many people won't be able to afford a home. And I'm not talking specifically about handguns. I'm talking about all kinds of generational wealth. But
And
this is big. I mean, there's
it's
lots of
huge.
collectors out there that have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of guns.
How do we hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think I believe there's a CFO who I believe has gone on the record saying that was chief firearms officer who's gone on the record saying that they are one of the people with those very expensive collections.
Absolutely.
How do we get other people besides firearm owners to care about this? How do we make this an issue that says, hey guys, it's us this time, but anybody could be next?
Okay, so first of all, understand that the mainstream media is a non-starter.
Right.
People reach out to us all the time and say, why don't you guys run a full-page ad in every newspaper in Canada? Well, because at $45 a year for a membership for each person, where we spend about 41 of it, maybe 41.50 just to cover expenses, we're not exactly rolling in dough. Okay, nobody in this business is rolling in dough. So the fact that these full page ads they're doing are tens of thousands of dollars. And if you want to do any advertisement, you got to tell people 3 times, right? Once to inform them, twice to inform them again, and the third time to make sure they got the message. You have to do that.
So it's like a roughly ballpark $75,000, $100,000 budget from the get-go.
Per ad.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
right. You do this in every daily in Canada, and you're into millions and millions a week.
Okay.
Well, no one's got the money for that. The mainstream media, it would be nice if we had one. I have to be harshly critical of the media because they have abandoned their responsibilities to report the truth and all of the truth. The money they get from the federal government is a payoff for them to write the right things. And there, I said it, okay, and I stand by it. The mainstream media in Canada is corrupted. You can't believe anything they say because it's all got a price tag attached to it. They got to write the right things. They got to say the right things. So we can't depend on those forms of mass information. We depend on shows like yourself to be able to get this out to as many people as possible. We depend more, I think, on the word of mouth of the individual gun owners. And rather than being outraged, which gun owners are, of course, they need to be informing other people of what this really means to our democracy, to our country, and to the net worth and value of every Canadian's property.
And I guess just talking about it in a calm, cool way and explaining that this is confiscation, this is arbitrary confiscation with zero compensation.
Of private property.
And also that what you were mentioning earlier on a few minutes ago of private property, what you were mentioning also is the way it's being done, the Liberal Party's disinformation campaign, the lies, the absolute outright lies of disinformation and smear tactics, and making it seem that confiscating your guns, my guns, our kids' guns, our friends' guns, is going to something to do with terrorists and murderers, and like it's an absolute disinformation campaign. So it's sneaky, and all those adjectives I used a minute ago. It's yeah. So it's we're quite opposed to what's happening here. So I'm glad that for this lawsuit, and you have a donation link on your website. I've also posted it in on the article on the web on the
yes
on
we
the
do.
gun blog.
We have a donation link right on the website. People can go there and donate any amount. We'll be grateful to accept it. As you all know, I'm sure, court cases run on money, and lawyers run on money. The feds, we don't know what's going to happen with the current court cases that are out there. We don't know whether the ones that are directed at the Order in Council still survive, because does the Order in Council survive?
Right.
I've seen opinions saying that it renders them all null and void, and I've seen opinions that it doesn't. But as I said earlier, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't get to make those kind of judgment calls.
And the
reason it would be prepared.
Sorry,
yeah, we have to be prepared for this eventuality. It could happen.
And the reason, if this is again speculating here, but the reason would be that if those guns prohibited and to be confiscated by the May 2020 Order in Council, if those are all included in Bill C-21, well, then that Order in Council it could actually be repealed, and it would be of no effect. It would have no impact. Even if we won in court, it would have no impact.
Right, because the Order in Council would not exist anymore.
Right.
I don't know whether or not that's the case, whether or not the courts are going to do gymnastics and move stuff around back and forth. That's not my area of expertise. That's why we hire lawyers for this stuff. And of course, it's all too fresh for anybody to be able to give any kind of a solid opinion at this point. However, the possibility does exist that when the dust finishes settling, the only lawsuit left standing is the one we just launched. That's not out of some kind of wisdom on our part. That just happens to be the fluke of the timing. Obviously, the Liberals planned this for a long time. That list is pretty big. And obviously, we planned the suit for a long time, because that takes a while to develop too. It just happened they came down within 2 days of each other. That was pure circumstance.
Well, you shouldn't tell people that, because it looks like absolute genius.
Yeah. You haven't met my assistant clairvoyant.
She's wonderful. And also, just to, in case people are watching this and you haven't been following the legal news this week, on Tuesday we became aware that the Liberals are banning hundreds of more shotguns, rifles, including bolt actions, mostly semi-auto mag-fed centerfires, like the SKS, like M1 Garand is on the list. Really, Benelli, what is it? The Benelli M1 Super 90, like really popular mainstream uh, sporting, hunting, ranching, farming rifles and shotguns. So those are all part of this expanded list that is now going to be wrapped into Bill C-21.
Right.
And also in terms of timing, the other legal challenges in the federal court, they've been going on for more than 2 years now,
Right.
probably more than 2.5 years before we get to a hearing. So this is
Right.
a long, shouldn't expect a quick win. This is a long time scale.
Yeah, it really is. And the federal government has infinite amounts of our money to fight us with. So, yeah, it's going to go on for a while.
And what would happen? People say, "Oh, if the Conservatives get in, they'll undo it all." If that's not true, right? If Bill C-21 is passed, that's it. Even a Conservative victory, that doesn't mean they can just repeal it. That's not how the law works.
Well, no, to a degree. To a degree, most things can be repealed. However, you've got to have a majority government to be able to do this. So we have to make sure that people's expectations are realistic.
Right.
A minority government can do some things, but there's only some things they could do. You really need to give Pierre Poilievre a majority government.
Yeah.
We have had extensive conversations with members of the party for years and years, decades, literally. We think we have a pretty good handle on this. So I can declare myself right now on this election thing. I'm voting for Pierre.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're a gun owner and you have a half an ounce of brains, you'd be voting for Pierre too.
So let's change gears and talk about this. What I'll call I was going to call it partisan politics. Let's say you are a person who is of a socialist mindset or a left-leaning mindset, and you prefer what the other parties offer, but gun ownership matters to you, and you believe that it's important and it's beneficial. I guess the question is, what's the argument to vote conservative? I also vote conservative, but I have trouble convincing people, and I don't even know how to convince people who
Right.
aren't of the conservative mindset, who are left-leaning.
Right.
How do you what do you tell to those people about voting conservative?
Well, there's a number of things. Okay. First of all, let's just come right out and say it. You got to pick your fights, like you want to fight for something? Great. If woke school boards means more to you than your firearms collection, well, then there you go. Your choice is made for you. But if your firearms, mean more to you than soldiers running around with shaved purple hair, then again, that's a fight you got to pick. But don't go thinking that you can please both masters. You're not going to be able to go to the Green Party and convince them that guns are okay and let them give you what you need. That's not going to happen because they're not going to win. And this is something that we've had an issue with. As you know, CSSA is very political.
Yeah,
we're a political organization, and certainly Max Bernier is a great guy. I've known Max for many years, and I have tremendous admiration for him. But he's not going to win. He's not going to win unless the Conservatives really, really mess up.
well, he didn't even win his seat.
Yeah, exactly. Now, bless his heart, he's trying. He's trying
to. Well, I voted for him in the leadership 2017.
Sure. I wish that every Canadian was as firm in their convictions as Mr. Bernier is. And like I said, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Okay. But at some point in time, you got to make a decision as to what you are capable of doing. An individual can't change the world, but they can change their vote. And that's really easy. So if guns mean a lot to you, and I know they do to most of your audience, choice is easy.
How about to the gun owners who are already convinced that gun ownership matters, but who won't vote conservative, who do vote liberal? My hope here is that what we just saw this week with the expanded confiscations, I'm using the slogan "Wake up the Fuds." Like maybe this will wake up the Fuds. Is that a
well?
What do you think of that?
I'd prefer not to use that nomenclature. I mean, people have different interests. So not everybody, of course, has firearms as something that is so important to them that they're willing to base their entire ballot around that. We like to think that right now the Conservatives have much to offer the country, not just guns.
Right.
There's a lot of good quality things happening there, and quite truthfully, I don't see them happening on the Liberal side. But some people do, and if those things matter that much to you, well, you got to vote for who you got to vote for.
So I
Uh,
also see this is also very interesting. You're teaching a lesson here in communication that if we want to be inclusive and open the tent, certain languages like the one I use, that's probably not that useful in that regard. It actually reinforces the division as opposed to extending a hand. And
do, do,
absolutely,
do
the
you hunt,
movement.
Nicholas?
Pardon me.
Do you hunt?
I have never been. I have my hunting license, but I've never been hunting.
Okay, I hunt. I got a whole lot of money in black guns that the Liberals are taking away from me, but I hunt.
Yeah.
So am I a FUD?
No, you're not.
No.
No, no.
And who is, the problem is that the original nomenclature of telling someone they were a FUD means somebody who wrapped themselves up in their duck shotgun and ignored the entire world. Most gun owners don't do that.
Okay.
Most of them do not do that. So now we're calling hunters FUDs. No, 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 no,
No,
no,
no, no. That's not
no,
what I meant.
wrong, wrong. These people are the same family as us, right?
Yeah. Well, on that point, I'll make
Yeah.
a plug for Coleon Noir. He did a video, gosh, several years ago, 10 years ago, maybe, yeah, 5-ish, 7 years ago, that he played the role of a hunter, a tactical dude, civil libertarian, Second Amendment person, and the fourth character was another stereotypical, was the sporter, right? The IPSC type person. And he showed very clearly that standing together is a much wiser tactic than cutting each other up.
And he's a very, very smart man. I had the privilege of having dinner with him a few years ago.
At SHOT Show?
Yeah, no, it's a different one, and it was fantastic. He's an amazingly bright man, just terrific.
He's incredibly very influential and has a great following.
But there's a lesson there. He just taught a lesson there, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
yeah. Remember, folks, we're all the same family.
yeah.
Okay, you got your sister over there with the warts, and you got your weird cousin Eddie, but we're all the same family. If we don't stick up for each other, who the hell's going to stick up for us? The Canadian public? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to be honest here. I sometimes I get angry, and I think of those people who don't stand together. And my attitude, I'm saying this out loud, is, well, if you don't stand with us today, we won't stand with you tomorrow. Or heck, if you're going to help them confiscate my guns today, I'll help them confiscate your guns tomorrow. And I know I've got this inner voice that wants vengeance, and I know that's absolutely counterproductive.
Absolutely. Yeah. The one message we can say is if they take these ones, they'll be back for more.
Yeah.
And after all, ours are all gone, they'll be after yours. But they won't stop until they get the very last BB gun.
Have you seen the list that was published that became public today? Have you had a chance to go through it in detail?
No one has at this point yet.
Because the reason I'm asking is, are there any? Pardon me?
I've seen the list.
I'm curious if you have any models that really surprised you. The one that really surprised me was that the M1 Garand is on the list. Also, some magless shotguns like the Benelli's M1 Super 90. Some really they made it sound like it was going to be semi-auto mag-fed, but no, there's bolt actions. There's
no. What they did do was they created a new category for semi-auto center fire mag-fed.
To make them prohibited by definition.
By definition. And what it says is that a magazine that is capable of a magazine-fed gun capable of accepting a magazine of more than 5 rounds. Well, you just got to make it longer. So I suppose there might be one or two strange ones where the magazine goes into a sliding door and the door closes and you can only get a certain size mag. But most of them, it's going to be simply a matter of sheet metal work and you can make a longer magazine, right?
And if it can hold 5, you get the 10-round version or the 20-round version. It's
Right.
really, really sneaky and playing with words. I want to also talk to you to get personal for a bit, because you are someone. I've said this to you. I've said this to you privately. I'll say it to you now publicly, that I'm basically a master of communication. I think some of your turns of phrases that I see quoted in the media, in your press releases, are just genius. How long have you been at this game?
Professionally, 25 years.
So you've seen quite a lot of stuff. And you're not only a
Yes.
communication master, you also have a high, I think of you as a technician. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, back in the days when they were having problems with the RCMP. Well, I mean, that could be yesterday. Okay, we're going to
Okay.
go back to Anne McClellan. Okay, when she was the justice minister, liberal justice minister in the Chrétien government,
Okay.
was
So
having
this is late
problems.
90s.
Yeah,
Okay.
mid '90s. Yeah,
Yeah.
having problems with the RCMP taking pellet guns and putting super ultra lightweight pellets in them, firing them across a chronograph and declaring them to be real guns and registering them. Well, that was not the intent of what they were trying to do back then. So Minister McClellan convened an experts technical committee. And I was privileged to be on that technical committee, along with some amazing folks like Phil Odell and Steve Torino and people like that, who really, really knew their stuff. There were some great people on that committee. And they were able to come up with the current air gun regulations that we have now, which mean you have to break the 5.7 joules and 500 feet a second in order to have that thing become a real firearm. So it was a productive committee, and that sort of started into doing a bunch more technical things, and now I'm accredited to the Supreme Court of Ontario. Um, as a technical expert on firearms. So I guess I am. I guess enough people have told me I am, so I guess I am.
So did you start with the technical expertise and then get into the politics and the communication and all that, or how did that
like,
happen?
well, most Canadians, I started off with a BB gun when I was 7 years old, and it just grew and grew and grew. My previous occupation made me pretty good at communication, and I was able to carry those communication skills into the gunfight. And I was asked to be on the board of directors of the old Ontario Handgun Association. And at the time, I was very political, and within a few months, I was the uh, political chairman of the committee. And that morphed into a series of symposiums held with other organizations around Canada for the purposes of establishing a lobbying group. The gentleman that was put in charge of the project, uh, unfortunately, was killed in an accident about 3 months into the project, and it lay dead for several months. And somebody pointed their finger at me and said, "Well, why don't you take up the torch and you do it?" And so I said, "Okay." And I put together a prospectus of what this would look like. And I brought that to a meeting in Langley, British Columbia, where a number of the groups gathered there. And I presented it, and they went around the table and had universal buy in from the groups that were there. And they said, "Okay, now on to problem two. Who do we get to run this?" And everybody pointed at me. And it was not my intention to do this. And they were able to convince me to take it on. And that became the Canadian Institute for Legislative Action. After a couple of years of running like that, money started to become difficult. And the Ontario Handgun Association at that time said, "We'll take on the expense. We'll pay for it on behalf of everybody." And that went along for a while until basically they were just about the only people still really involved in it. And that was about 1998, I guess, and 99 maybe. In the year 2000, um, at a meeting of that organization, they decided, well, look, we're doing the heavy lifting here for all the groups, and it's on behalf of everybody in every province and of every discipline and every type. So Ontario Handgun Association is probably a misnomer, and they changed the name to the Canadian Shooting Sports Association, and it runs to this day at that. And the current role that I'm in as executive director of the whole association, I stayed on originally doing political work, and fruitfully, I think. I mean, we managed to do some wonderful stuff, like get rid of the long gun registry, which you can imagine what this new bill would look like if the feds knew where
Oh
every
my
one of
God.
the guns are.
And
So
that was an incredible achievement
it was.
for in a Western democracy to get rid of a registry of that links every gun to its owner. That kind of a move is, to the best of my knowledge, unheard of in any Western democracy.
That's right. It was unprecedented, and we had kudos come in from all over the
Yeah.
world because of it. But now here we are. The chickens have come home to roost, and you see the real fruit in
10,
in that
10
in
years
that
later, more than 10
yeah,
years later.
10 years later.
A lot of people ask me, and so I'm going to ask you, why don't the CCFR Canadian, well, the CCSA, CCFR Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights, and the NFA, National Firearms Association, why don't the big three orgs join up and create a federation, a huge umbrella association, and be stronger and richer? And what do you say to that question?
Well, first of all, the rumor that we fight with each other is absolutely totally unfounded. Totally unfounded. We don't fight with each other ever. Okay. I have communications with all of the fellow organizations, and frankly, we never fight with each other. And we share information at times when it's required to do so. When it's in the best interests of everybody to do so, we share information. And the fighting happens at the grassroots level. Human beings are tribal. Let's face it, we're tribal. And so when you got a whole bunch of people huffing up their chests and saying, "Well, I'm with this group," and the other one say, "Yeah, well, your group sucks because I'm with this group," and all it is just a bunch of kids in the schoolyard, and that doesn't extend to the hierarchy of the organizations. We're friends with everybody, and we maintain that. We maintain cordial relations with everyone. You know, I could give a million and one anecdotes, but when we had our annual general meeting and Pierre Polyev was the speaker at that meeting, I look out in the audience and there's my friend, the executive director of CCFR, and my other friend, the executive director of NFA, and they're there at our due and welcome guests. We value them.
Would it make sense to have a merger?
Well, it's been talked about. The problem you get with something like that is that people have different ways of doing things. And sometimes it's geographic, and sometimes it's just the experiences that they've had. Is there any one best way to do something? Because that is what you'll end up with. You take the three gun orgs, you merge them all together, and you wind up with one best way. Well, yeah, but maybe that's not the best way. Maybe looking at that, it's the only way you can do it and get consensus. Are you sometimes better to try three different things? It wouldn't matter if we were all one. We are overwhelmed in size by the juggernaut of the Canadian government. So it doesn't really matter if you're three small ones or three really small ones. It doesn't make that big a difference. The one thing that has to be remembered, we're all on the same side.
Mhm.
Okay, the folks in the other orgs are not our enemies. They're not my enemy. That's for damn sure. And so any of your members that ever thought that might be true, it's not true. We are
And,
not enemies. We're on the same side.
and
We're
I've
allies.
heard, and I remember you said that also at the SHOT Show reception on the Wednesday of SHOT Show, which I believe you've said is the biggest meeting of the Canadian gun community anywhere, right?
Absolutely.
It's and from my perspective, to I extend what you were saying there. I believe I have been or am a member of all three organizations,
Yep.
and I recognize they have the leadership has different personalities, different methods, different approaches, different priorities, and I guess I do like the idea of a bigger elephant, or of one big elephant instead of three smaller elephants.
Yeah.
But also, I think I mean, there's pros and cons to each, and the reality is we don't have one big one. We have three not big ones.
Well, you can be the moose, right?
Yeah.
Or you can be the three wolves. Which one's better?
Yeah. Arguably, you can have a debate about that.
Right, exactly. Sometimes being the big moose is better, and on those times when that happens, we can all agree. It's easy for us to agree, and like you say, at CSSA's Vegas reception, we do this Vegas reception as a gesture of kinship to everybody who's down at the SHOT Show from Canada. Okay, so the NFA and the CCFR are welcome guests.
Yeah.
We even point them out, as you know.
Well, yeah, absolutely. They're
Yeah,
honored. They're
we
honored during, yeah.
they're recognized as honored guests at our events, and we do this and are happy to do it. And in the last couple of years, NFA's even joined in, and they help sponsor the
Yeah.
event,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. I mean, we love this.
I love seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Because we are all on the same team.
How have your views of gun politics or the community or the organizations, how have your views changed over the past few decades?
Wow, we're a lot more sophisticated than we used to be. We used to believe that if you went to the powers that be and you just explained to them how wrong they were and how righteous our side was, that they would immediately come around and they would see that we are the good guys and everything would change. And then you come to this realization that they don't care if you're the good guys. This isn't about that. This is all about politics. It's about winning votes and eventually winning power. Which is not to say that politicians are all bad. They're not all bad. Some great people are politicians, and I count a bunch of different politicians among my friends, and I mean that sincerely. There's some good people, and the good people are good people in all parties. It's not like everybody's bad up there, but at the end of the day, you got to win the elections in order to take those positions and move them into the mainstream. It's not easy to do. And sometimes good things become casualties in that pursuit. It's too bad, but it's the way it is. So, we have a level of sophistication, particularly on a political level, that is, I think probably the best in the country. CSSA does this stuff really well. We do it really, really well. And there's a number of reasons. We're discreet. We're conservative. And I don't mean that conservative as a large C, small c conservative. We don't go doing flamboyant things. We don't embarrass people. We don't embarrass politicians. Everybody's entitled to their own ridiculous opinion, even liberals. So you have to respect that. Because you'll never get anywhere with any politician if you don't show them respect. So it goes.
Yeah, I can also, as much as I don't like the current government, in my social feeds, I don't like people who insult them or insult their personality or swear at them. I find that distasteful. How about you? What do you find, whether it's in terms of tactics or strategy or communication or priorities, where do you think the gun community, where do we go wrong? Where do we What are
Ooh.
some of your pet peeves of things you see that we do that that yeah, that you think are wrong-headed?
Well, the problem you have is if you have 5 gun owners in a room, you got 6 opinions, okay? And every one of them are willing to share every one of their opinions. And I think I can speak for my other fellow association heads is that, for God's sakes, people stay away from the microphones. You know,
What do you mean by that?
when a reporter walks into a
Oh,
rally, you notice they always go to the guy with the camo hat on backwards and the camo jacket. His name's Bubba, and his knuckles drag the ground. I mean, they go to that guy deliberately. Deliberately. They know that the guy's not sophisticated speaker to reporters. Reporters are always trying to get something out of you. There's a reason that they're talking to you. And I don't mean this to sound like I'm down on gunnies, because I'm not. I work for them. I love them dearly. But wow, you just put a microphone up and it just attracts them in. If this worked on fish, wow, it'd be great. So if somebody's in that room from a reporter from a paper, a TV station, direct them to somebody who is in charge. Okay, the reason I'm saying that is because most of the people that are in charge at least have some experience. Like there's lots and lots of rallies, and it might be just the guy who's the president of your gun club. Well, he's got more experience speaking to these reporters than you do.
and you're worried about, or the concern is about accuracy or around messaging, optics, all of the above?
All of the above, pick
Yeah.
them all. And it can vary from one to the other. And like I said, Nicholas, I'm not dissing gun owners. They're passionate. They want to tell their story, and they do. And we've been wronged. We've been really, really wronged for 25, 30 years now. We have been really wronged. People are angry. They're passionate
Yeah.
about this. They want to say it. I understand. Okay, but dealing with these reporters, some of them are truly snakes.
I was also very naive. I've said this in a Q&A recently. I believed, like a little bit like what you were describing a moment ago, that, oh, if I present facts and information, well, then they will see the justice of my side and bow to my point of view. That it took me a few years, but yeah, that's not how it works.
No, it's not how it works. And it's not because that's not how people work. That is how people work. What it is that we, in our naivete, misunderstood what the game was.
Yeah.
Okay, the game isn't to take our guns. Honestly, the liberals don't care about your guns. They don't care at all about your guns. What they care about is moving the votes out of the 514 and the 905.
I'm going to play with that a little bit. I used to think it was pure electioneering, pure politics, pure vote getting. And I've lately come to think, no, there might be an ideology of disarmament or some kind of desire for disarmament.
Yep.
I guess you don't?
I don't know. I do.
You do? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. And the political parties cater to that. They attract people in that have the ideological desire to do this stuff.
Do you think also that there's a desire? I ran a poll actually today on Twitter. Why are the liberals doing their thing? Is it ideology? Is it politics, malice, or all of the above? Do you think there's a desire to basically, they know we'll never vote for them, so they hate us? Is that
Totally.
yeah? I want to say I want to believe it's too simplistic, but
It's too simplistic for most of them, but there are some of them that truly hate us, especially if they've ever encountered a determined campaign.
How do you explain people like the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, who grew up as a gun owner, who has been, he said this publicly, I'm not revealing anything out of turn. He said this publicly, quoted in the papers about how he grew up. He even said to the Hill Times that he had his family's gun stolen from his cottage. I don't know if it were his guns or his parents or something. But how do you explain a politician who is actually a quote unquote gunny or has some firearm ownership in his family,
Yep.
turning around and doing this? How do you square that circle?
Well,
Is
I
power
don't
just
know.
power?
I don't know if I can.
Okay.
First of all, let's take the Prime Minister. Okay, my first guess is he's lying. All right. Okay. Sorry, that's my first guess. Let's take Wayne Easter. Okay, Wayne Easter, one of the longest-serving Liberals, right through from the Chrétien government, and Wayne owned probably 30 guns. Okay, he was an avid shooter, avid hunter. How did he square that circle? With a great deal of pain. With a great deal of pain. If you wanted to be on the ship, you had to serve the wishes of the captain. And there were lots of things that Wayne liked about the Liberal Party, but he didn't like that. And was vocal within the party about speaking out against the continued attacks. That was a guy who had principle. Okay, he believed a certain thing, and he pursued that belief. And when it came to firearms ownership, he wasn't shy about saying, I don't believe that we should be attacking gunners. That takes us back to the Prime Minister. So if he's not lying, then he doesn't have any principles. Okay, so we can probably hit the all of the above button.
I'll make a mental note of that.
Yeah.
I'd like, as we get ready to wind down here, I'd like to get positive. I like to think of positive, because I've been doing this a lot less long than you have, only since 2015, and I am guilty of getting really negative sometimes in some of the stuff I do, and I'm making an effort to be positive. What do we have to look forward to in the gun community of Canada?
Well, let's see. I think a new government.
Okay.
Okay. That is the biggest problem that we face right now. All right. I'm not going to suggest that the Conservatives will be everything we could ever have hoped for, but boy, they'll sure be a damn sight better than this. Okay. I think Pierre is an outstanding politician. I don't think I've met very many people in politics that have as keen an intellect as he has. He understands our issue, not just knows it. He understands it.
And there's an incredible political movement coming up around him, which is really exciting to see.
Very exciting to see. As a matter of fact, I can honestly say in my lifetime, I haven't seen anything like this since the original Pierre Trudeau in terms of a political movement.
I didn't know that. I knew Pierre Trudeau was popular, but I wasn't interested in politics or I wasn't born in those days, but okay. And how about the people? One of the things that I get really excited about and what I think is positive is the people and the commitment and the engagement that I see in our community. What else? So besides a change in government, besides some people, what else? Is there anything in terms of, I don't know, technology or silver linings in some of the legislation that's happening, or how about the unenforceability? That's something that's kind of positive. That
we'll touch on that, but while we're on to other stuff,
sure.
The prevalence of so much more ladies within our sport. It's wonderful to see, and
is that visible on the range today? Is that visible today when you look at the range down the line today versus 30, 40 years ago? Is there really a visible change?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Absolutely. And it's a wonderful change, and it's mostly young women, although there's others, of course, but when there's young women grow up to be young mothers. Young mothers become older mothers, and they teach their children the things that the children know. And when you've got these wonderful ladies joining up into our sport, I am so excited by this. I think it's the most incredible thing in terms of the evolution of our sport. Many clubs out there are still wrestling with the old boys image, but they're losing, and they're all losing. Every one of them is losing.
What's
And
driving the popularity of gun ownership, gun sports among women?
I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly can't put my finger on it. And maybe that's just, my own blinders or lack of focus on the issue. Um, but it's great to see. And we've done ladies days for 25, 30 years, and they've always enjoyed them. But when it came down to joining the clubs and becoming part of the community, not quite as much buy-in as there was buy-in into the shooting. And now when we do the MP shoots, for your listeners, CSSA does a member of parliament shoot every single year. And the parliamentary day at the range is huge. It's well attended, normally into about 110 MPs, senators, and senior staffers.
Nonpartisan, right? Open to all parties.
Open to all parties, and please leave your partisanship at the door. We don't discuss politics. We don't do that. That's an absolutely forbidden subject at the MP shoots. We go there, we have contests to see who can shoot the most number of birds a trap. And we have, some people who are delightful surprises. We had a young female MP. I won't identify her right now, but I walked her through last year her very first shot with a 22 handgun. 20 minutes later, she's drilling out the center of the black with a full loaded 44 Magnum and going, kaboom. Wow, I love this.
Yeah.
Kaboom. And, it's just patiently moving them through the steps as they accommodate more and more recoil. And this has been a huge success. This has been absolutely the best lobbying opportunity you could ever have because there's no politics.
And I'll extend the invitation if that person would like to talk to me and talk about her experience. I would
Sure.
like to
Okay, well,
invite
I'll
her.
pass it along to her, okay?
It's
But
that's
the beautiful
incredible. Yeah.
thing, yeah, well, the beautiful thing with this is that with no politics,
Yeah.
and we don't identify them, there's no cameras, okay?
No
If an
media.
MP wants to take pictures of themselves, that's fine. No media. Oh, no, no, they're not invited. No media.
Uh,
We have a police officer there as well at the gate
Very
to
interesting.
make sure that unwanted guests are not there. Because the one thing a lot of the MPs from or senators from other parties may not want to see is their picture shooting a black gun or something like that. But we want them to shoot the black guns. We want them to find out that, that AR-15 that's been demonized so much really isn't much of anything.
There's actually someone who currently, this is topical, Dan McGregor, of the NDP, who I believed was biased against firearm ownership, and who went to visit an IPSC club. BC, I'm not sure if it's Victoria or Vancouver, but went to visit an IPSC club, and the transformation is incredible. So
Right.
even if their political alliance, whatever it is, what it is, but he is just, his expertise, his familiarity, his comfort on the subject is it's just remarkable.
Right.
What a huge change. Yeah. So
The lobbying that we actually do here is not verbal.
it's
It's
experiential.
it's experiential.
Yeah.
And come and experience this, see what it's really about, and then we can talk.
Just before we wind down, are there anything that you want to clarify, correct, expand on? Any topics we didn't touch that you feel are important to get into?
Well, I'm sure there's probably about 40. But in the meantime, keep the great work up, because honestly, Nicholas, that the stuff that you do, conveying out the message, is hugely important. It's hugely important. Getting the word out to the gunnies. There are people out there fighting very hard for their behalf. We occasionally get the, hate mail come in. It doesn't happen often, thank you, but we get one come in say, like nobody cares about the actual gunners. You guys are just doing it to earn fat paychecks. It's like, ha!
Yeah, I'm waiting to see those fat paychecks.
Yeah, me too. I'm waiting for it too, you know. You get people that get negative like that, and negative people can tend to pollute an entire community. It's broadcasts like yours that are getting out to that community and telling them what's really happening out there. It's very important.
Well, thank you for saying that, and I'm going to also right back at you. Thank you for the work you are doing, and
You're welcome.
you've been a leader you've been at this multiples of the time that I've been at, and your incredible reach and a role model.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll see you in Vegas.
That will be a different topic. Unlikely this year. I have a young
no.
baby now, and so my priorities have shifted. But it's not a flat no, but it's an unlikely.
You can bring the baby.
We're working on a solution.
Okay.
But Tony Bernardo, Executive Director of the CSSA, the Canadian Shooting Sports Association, really great talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas.